Good evening. It's great to be here and great to see my friend CJ here as well. Also just got to know that your board chair of MMA India, Mr. Amit Jain, who spoke to all of you this morning, he was my immediate neighbor. But I do have a complaint against him. The last time we played squash, he did beat me. So anyway, again, I'm going to take you to some of the coldest places on the planet. To the geographical North Pole, to the South Pole, to the summit of Mount Everest. It is going to get really cold. So if you have a few blankets, now is the time to pass them around. Let your imagination go wild and high. Imagine you're on an expedition to climb Mount Everest. You're climbing over 8,000 meters. That's the summit of Everest at the back, in the so-called death zone. It's called the death zone because we human beings aren't supposed to be there. There's very little oxygen, and if something goes wrong, there's no such thing as rescue. So you've trained hard, and while the climbing is tedious, in a strange kind of a way, you're actually enjoying the climb. But you are climbing with your daughter. And suddenly, with very little warning, all hell breaks loose and it becomes a battle for survival. Temperatures plummet to minus 40 degrees Celsius. You can't turn back. You're frozen. And one wrong step can have some very serious consequences. So, what do? When I graduated from college, all my friends, all my buddies were getting real jobs in the real world, becoming marketing professionals and so on. When I told them that I was going to make my hobby, my passion, into my profession, they thought that I had lost it completely. I was into adventure sports then, and I thought I was going to get into adventure and adventure tourism. I joke about it, but this is how I commute to work. This is a 400-meter zip line that takes me to a campsite we run in the Himalaya near Rishikesh. It's called Leopard Heights, and it's a lot of fun. I think today my friends do acknowledge that if you are passionate about what you do in life, you actually don't work for a single day. Straight out of college, I must admit, I had the proud privilege of taking Sir Edmund Hillary rafting down the Ganges River on a couple of occasions. Now, in our world of adventure, we feel that Sir Ed rose to heights higher than Mount Everest. As you all know, Sherpa Tenzing and Sir Ed were the first two people to climb Everest way back in 1953. But Sir Ed, post-Everest, he used all that fame to good measure. He built schools and hospitals for the Sherpa people of Nepal, and like I mentioned, we do feel that he rose to heights higher than Mount Everest. So straight out of college, I got into the amazing world of adventure, climbing mountains, skiing down them, whitewater kayaking down some of the wild rivers on the planet. Incidentally, kayaking, this is my favorite adventure sport. This is one sport where men have to wear skirts as well. We call it a spray skirt to prevent water from going into the kayak. So this is the Alsek River in Alaska, and we got to see 28 grizzly bears while on that expedition. But one of my favorite rivers on the planet is the Zambezi River. That's a 16-foot raft going into the maelstrom. This is just below Victoria Falls, which is one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. And that's the raft completely disappearing. But what makes rafting on the Zambezi really exciting is the presence of these crocodiles in the calm pools below the rapids. So if you do flip the raft, you've got to upright the raft very quickly and of course pull everybody back in. I think competing for the country in rafting championships was a huge honor, but the biggest honor, I must admit, was training our special forces in adventure. And while I was their trainer and team leader, I must admit I learned a lot from the Indian Armed Forces, and I have a huge amount of respect for our men and women in uniform. The first thing I learned was when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And the second thing was the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. I was very lucky. Going to the poles, skiing to the poles was a childhood dream. And I got an opportunity to ski. This was my first polar expedition to ski to the geographical North Pole, 90 degrees north latitude. So the North Pole is on the Arctic Ocean. So you ski on a thin layer of ice, 1 to 2 meters thick on the Arctic Ocean. And of course, we had our fair share of adventure. So that sled you tow behind you, it weighs about 60, 65 kilos.
Here goes the sled. Oh, shit.
Pardon my language there. I had to stop filming and go and help my buddy. But of course, getting to the geographical North Pole was, and unfurling the Indian tricolor was a huge high. As you are aware, all the longitudes converge at the poles. So if you take a little circle at 90 degrees north latitude, you've actually circumnavigated the planet. But of course, we had a lot of fun along the way, and that's actually a swim in the Arctic Ocean. Considering the temperatures in Delhi, I'm sure this is going to cool all of you. Yeah.
Does everyone know how cold it is outside?
It's definitely warmer inside.
Yeah.
6 months later, on my wedding anniversary, this little plane, this Twin Otter, dropped me off to the starting point of our next expedition, which was to ski to the bottom of our planet, 90 degrees south latitude to the South Pole. And we have a term for it. I'm going to give you the politer version. It's called AMF Yo-Yo. Stands for Adios, my friend, you're on your own, right? So the plane took off, and we got into perhaps some of the most hostile conditions on the planet. That's an Antarctic storm, and it is sometimes a big battle just for survival. But that's my photograph at the geographical South Pole. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm smiling big time. And smiling big time, I was frozen stiff. It was about minus 40 degrees Celsius. Smiling because when I was in school at the Lawrence School, Sanaa, and I'm sure Papa CJ here will agree that the Lawrence School, Sanaa is the best school in the country. But I had read about these famous polar explorers, Scott, Amundsen, Nansen, Shackleton, and it was a childhood dream to one day follow in their very illustrious footsteps and ski to the poles. And let me tell you, there's nothing that gives you more happiness and joy in life than dreaming big and facing the storms in the pursuit of your dreams head on with a smile and a never given attitude and making those dreams come true. I'm going to tell you two stories here. One is about teamwork. I know many of you here lead teams. So I like to call this extreme teamwork. So this race to get to the South Pole happened about 100 years ago. And this race was between two explorers. So one team was led by Captain Scott, who was leading a British team. They wanted to be the first to get to the South Pole. The other team, a Norwegian team led by Captain Amundsen, also wanted to be the first to get to the South Pole. Well, to cut a long story short, the Norwegians got to the South Pole about 5 weeks before the British got there. And when the British got there, you can see this flag with the Norwegian, this tent with the Norwegian flag. When the Brits got there, those days they used to use sextants to determine their latitude and longitude. Now we use GPSs. But the British realized that the Norwegians had accurately put their tent at the geographical South Pole. So as you can tell from the body language in this photograph, the Brits were sadly a dejected lot. So they started back. They started skiing all the way back to the coast of Antarctica. And one of their team members, Captain Oates, got frostbite on his feet. Now, he realized he was slowing his team down. And with him slowing his team down, there was a chance that they might not make it back alive. So one day, Captain Oates just walked out of his tent saying, "I'm going out, I may be some time." He actually froze to death to try and give his teammates a chance to survive. Sadly, as you know, Captain Scott and his entire team perished just a few miles away from their boat. But I like to call this extreme teamwork. And if we can adopt a little bit of this attitude at our workplaces, it doesn't matter who gets the credit, long as you succeed together as a team. Our teams, our workplace, we'll be able to take it to the next orbit. My second story is about leadership. So again, this was about 98 years ago. There was a team led by Captain Shackleton. And this time they wanted to ski across Antarctica via the South Pole. Now, even before they got to Antarctica, their ship, the Endurance, got stuck in the pack ice. And they were stuck there. After about a year, Shackleton rowed a 22-foot boat with 5 people in the high seas for 1,300 kilometers to an island called Georgia to save his team. So luckily, he was able to come back and save his entire team. Now, Shackleton is regarded as a true leader, and there are many case studies about Shackleton. And well, let me just say, do remember that leadership is not all about when things are going hunky-dory. The true test of leadership is in hostile, in adverse, COVID-like conditions. And as they say, if you do not change, and I'm quoting Charles Darwin here, you die. You change, you survive. If you cause change, you lead. Some of Shackleton's leadership qualities that stand out: optimism even while facing extreme adversity. Even in the most trying of circumstances, Shackleton was able to build commitment within his team and keep their morale high. Adaptability. He changed his plan 4 times due to changing circumstances. And of course, the ability to take tough decisions. I thought I knew what the spirit of adventure was all about, till I got my two best adventure buddies, my two daughters. Now, we go scuba diving together, and this video was to wish my wife a happy birthday. So we did this 20 meters underwater. That says, love you, mama. Okay. So that's my elder daughter, Deeya. She's into extreme adventure. The harder the adventure, the more she thrives. My younger daughter, Meghna, she's a great singer, a taekwondo black belt, loves scuba. She's a PADI certified rescue diver, loves kayaking and skiing. But Deeya decided that extreme adventure is what she really enjoys. So Deeya was all of 14 when we went on our first serious expedition. So this was 18-day sea kayaking expedition along the fjords of West Greenland. And when Deeya was 17, we decided to ski 600 kilometers across the Greenland ice cap near the Arctic Circle. So it's about minus 23 degrees Celsius, and you have 24 hours of daylight. I must admit, I was a very nervous father. Deeya was in school. She went to the Shri school, which is close by, and nobody that young had attempted to ski across the Greenland ice cap. But as we got along, I realized that it had been a good decision, and she really thrived in those conditions. That's camping on the Arctic ice. You melt snow to make water, and it's like living life in a deep freeze. You have 24 hours of daylight, and one of the things we did is we navigated past this structure that you see called Die-2. This was straight out of a James Bond film. So during the Cold War, the Americans had built these radars to warn them of a preemptive strike by the Soviets, in case they decided to send an intercontinental ballistic missile their way. And of course, when the Cold War ended in the late 80s, they just abandoned this and went away. So going inside was amazing, and quite an eerie feeling actually. This is one of our team members, Tony. We started calling him Tony the Walrus after this. And of course, once again on the last day, unfurling the Indian tricolor at the edge of the Greenland ice cap was a huge high for both of us, being the first crazy Indians to attempt this. So just before Deeya went to college, my way of saying goodbye to her was by traversing Mount Elbrus in Russia. It's the highest mountain in Europe. So we climbed up from the north side to the summit, which is behind us, and came down from the south side. And while she was in college, we decided that both of us were mountaineers, and we decided we wanted to climb Mount Everest. Now that's the summit of Mount Everest, and as you know, it demarcates the border between Nepal on the right side, and on the left side is Tibet. We decided, most people climb from Nepal, we decided we wanted to climb Everest from the north face, the harder side in Tibet. It's colder, it's steeper, more wind, but we felt we were ready for it. The other advantage, of course, was there's less climbers. And we felt we were ready for the challenge, and we spent the next 2 years of our life training for Mount Everest. This was our first expedition. We climbed a mountain called Kangyatse in Ladakh. We went, did a lot of winter trekking in Nepal, and then we went to the French Alps for a bit of ice climbing and winter climbing. That's my daughter, Deeya, going up a frozen waterfall. And for our last training expedition, we decided what better way to train than going in search of the grey ghost of the Himalaya, the very elusive snow leopard. We were very lucky. We had 4 sightings of the snow leopard, and we thought that this was a really good omen. That's the base camp of Mount Everest. That's Mount Everest at the back. And this is a puja ceremony by the Rinpoche of a monastery close by, who came to bless our expedition. And just standing there looking at Mount Everest, which, as you all know, is also one of the 7 natural wonders of the world, you realize that the one thing you need on the mountain is respect. People talk about conquering Mount Everest. Let me tell you, we human beings, we are too small, too insignificant to ever think of conquering mountains or Mother Nature. And you always have to approach these mountains with a lot of respect and humility. And that's the only way forward. So if all of us, including myself, were to go to the summit of Everest from where we are right now, there's only 1/3 the level of oxygen up there. We would die within 3 to 4 minutes. So that's our route up Everest. So what happens is you have to acclimatize, get used to those lower levels of oxygen, and the mantra for success for acclimatization is climb high, sleep low. And the other thing, of course, that happens at altitude is you lose your appetite. I lost 12 kilos on Everest. So if any of you here want to eat just about anything you want to eat and still lose weight, I would strongly advise one of these extreme expeditions. Yeah. So that's Deeya climbing up to the North Col on Everest. I must admit, as a father, during the day, when I would see Deeya climbing with her youthful exuberance, it was very special. But then again, there were moments when I was in my tent and I thought, oh my God, what have I done? While we had trained really hard, there are many factors up there that are beyond your reasonable control. And well, that's Deeya in the blue jacket, climbing up to the North Col. You can see a few climbers coming up behind us. And right at the bottom is the advanced base camp. So this is what the North Col on Everest looks like, 23,000 feet. On the left side, you have a crevice. On the right side, you have a 2,000-foot drop all the way down to your advanced base camp. So whenever you get out of your tent, you have to have your boots on, you've got to have all your gear on, and you have to be anchored on a rope. So coming back to my story, it was a sunny day in the Himalaya, and we were climbing in the death zone at 8,000 meters, Everest at the back, and we got into this deadly storm. So the temperature dropped to minus 40 degrees Celsius. It became a battle for survival. A lot of battles are fought in the human mind, and you win or you lose depending on what goes on in there. You have to stay positive. Take a deep breath. You cannot panic. You've trained hard, and you know that the training will stand you in good stead. You encourage your daughter and in turn draw strength from looking at her climbing steadily and strongly through the storm. You encourage her and tell her to keep an eye on the team. And positive visualization always helps. There is a term, it's called sang-froid, a French term. And I think all of us here, whether you're adventurers, explorers, or in the corporate world, sang-froid has to become our middle name. Sang-froid is the ability to stay cool, calm, and composed in a crisis. I'd like to share with all of you our secret for success on some of these extreme expeditions. To get to the top, the acronym, it's called TOP. T stands for teamwork, always putting your team before your self-interest. O is about your outlook, a very positive outlook, a glass half full, happy camper attitude, as I like to call it. And P is for all the planning that you put into your expeditions or life in general. Confucius spoke about that in the 6th century BC. And TOP has really helped us in all our expeditions. So we got to our campsite at 8,000 meters and the storm started again. We actually thought we are going to get blown off the face of Mount Everest. So we didn't get to sleep at night. I slept with my boots on. Luckily, the weather gods were kind, and next morning we started. You can see we are using supplemental oxygen here. We started for the summit camp and got about 3 hours of rest, 4 hours of rest at the summit camp. And you can't really sleep because there's a lot of nervous anticipation for the climb ahead. But at 9 o'clock, we got out of our tents. It was minus 45 degrees Celsius, and we started climbing with our headlamps. So this is what it was like climbing at night. It was really steep, mixture of rock and ice, and you climb with a headlamp. So all the training we did stood us in really good stead. But suddenly, just below the summit, something went wrong and I couldn't breathe. So I realized that the tube supplying oxygen to my mask had frozen. So we were on a very steep slope. It was 3 a.m. in the morning, pitch dark, minus 45 degrees Celsius. You're climbing with your daughter. What do? I must say it was a moment of truth for me. And I promised my family back home that we were going to climb as a buddy pair and we were going to stay together. But at that moment, I had to take a decision, and it's one of the toughest decisions I took, which was to let Deeya go. She had been climbing really well. She's a strong mountaineer in her own right. But I must admit, when I saw her headlamp going away from me, was a very emotional moment for me because I didn't know if I had done the right thing or not. But then I realized, as you know, at altitude with the lack of oxygen, you are very fuzzy brained. But then I realized that I had a walkie-talkie with me, and since both of us were so far ahead, I reached out to our Sherpa Sardar, our head Sherpa, and I asked him, Nimadai, we knew he's carrying a spare mask. So Nima caught up with me. I was able to change that mask and crank up my oxygen levels. You can't crank them too high because you need oxygen to come down safely. And I started going as fast as I could because I knew there was this one treacherous stretch below the summit, and I'll show you a video. Once I crossed that stretch, the last 2 pitches from the north side to the summit of Everest are relatively straightforward. Once I crossed that rock traverse, as we call it, I was able to breathe easy. And I got to the top. Deeya was waiting for me. We had matching orange down suits and helmets. And it was a very emotional moment for both of us. You know, as the first daughter, father, parent, child team to have climbed Everest from the harder north side, we don't climb for records, we got to know this much later, but we wanted to convey two strong messages to our fellow citizens. One, that the time for India has come. And no matter what we do, what our profession is, we've got to do whatever it takes to take our Tiranga to the very top. And the second message was about the girl child. Our girls, our daughters, if as parents, we can encourage them to dream big and face those challenges in the pursuit of their dreams with them. Our girls, they'll be able to take not just our country, but the entire world to the next orbit. It was broad, thank you. It was broad daylight now. We hadn't slept for 2 nights. We were exhausted, and most accidents happen on the way down. So when we looked at the way down, you know, there's a 10,000-foot drop all the way down. Thank you. And so we spoke to each other, had a bit of water, had something to eat, and we told each other that we were going to be really careful. This is the traverse I was talking about. So you have a 10,000-foot drop. You're wearing these metal spikes called crampons. You're going on rock, and it's a long way down. So that's the third step on Mount Everest, and this is the second step on Mount Everest. This is really treacherous, and let me tell you, what really freaks you out is when you see the bodies of frozen climbers. They were climbers just like you, who were just unlucky and got caught in bad weather or whatever happened. But the one thing that Deeya and I had decided was that if we saw another climber in trouble, you know, up there rescue is very difficult. It's almost impossible sometimes. But we decided that the mountain, the summit is not going to go anywhere. But the kind of ethos, climbing ethos we believe in was that we were going to do anything to help a fellow climber. So one of the Austrian climbers who was climbing with us sadly got frostbite on his fingers. And let me tell you the story. He went out of his tent in the storm to have a cigarette. And he took out his gloves and, well, that gave him the frostbite. Moral of the story, folks, never, ever even look at a cigarette. Yeah, we came back to the most amazing welcome. We had about 400 friends, family members, with a brass band who came and met us at the airport. It was a huge honor to meet the honorable president of the country then. But what I wanted to share with you was this story sort of went viral. And there's a bit of a poetic license here, but this was an ad done by Bonvita. I just thought I'll share it with you, where we got over 8 million views on YouTube. एवरेस्ट पे पहुंचने की तो बहुत खुशी होती है, पर एक खुशी उससे भी बढ़कर होती है। माउंटेनियरिंग और पेरेंटिंग में ज्यादा फर्क नहीं होता। टू बी अ गुड माउंटेनियर, you have to be fearless. You have to take on every challenge with a smile. और एक अच्छा पेरेंट भी अपने बच्चों को यही सिखाता है। बचपन से ही दिया का खेल कूद और माउंटेनियरिंग में बहुत शौक था। लोग मुझे कहते थे, आप अपनी बेटी को क्या करा रहे हो? But I never really bothered about it.
पापा मुझे हर दिन 6 बजे उठाकर ट्रैकिंग के लिए ले जाते थे और मैं सोचती थी कि पापा मुझे ये क्यों करवा रहे हैं।
Keep going, fantastic.
He wanted me to push my limits and be better each day.
दिया से जब मैंने एवरेस्ट चढ़ने की बात की थी, I wasn't very sure. दिया का कॉन्फिडेंस देख के I got confidence myself.
This is what life at 21,000 feet looks like.
The one thing I will never forget. We were close to the summit of Mount Everest और मेरा ऑक्सीजन मास्क it froze. ऐसी सिचुएशन में अच्छे लोग गिव अप कर जाते हैं, बट नॉट दिया। इतनी ऊंचाई पे भी दिया ने मेरा ऐसा ख्याल रखा जैसे बचपन में मैं उसका ख्याल रखता था। At that moment, मुझे लगा कि मेरी बेटी एवरेस्ट से भी ऊंची है। So our passion, our quest for adventure continued, and Deeya and I decided to climb the 7 summits, the highest mountain on every continent. That's Mount Vinson. Very cold, very remote. This is the highest mountain in Antarctica. And then 2 years back, we had to, there was a bit of a pause because of COVID. 2 years back, we were able to realize our dream of climbing the 7 summits together on Mount Denali. This is a little plane, a de Havilland, that dropped us off to the base camp of Mount Denali. But as soon as we got there, there was this massive avalanche that you can see. There's an avalanche coming down the mountain. Glad we are nowhere close to it. So that's Deeya climbing up. That's Deeya climbing up. This mountain, Denali, is in Alaska. It's the highest mountain in North America, close to the Arctic Circle. Again, remote, cold, but a fantastic climbing experience for both of us. We really had a great time on the climb, and again, fulfilling a parent-child dream on the highest point in North America was a very proud and emotional moment for both of us. Well, to sum up our journey together, let me take you through 11 key lessons that I've learned from the very edge of the planet. This is something that can empower us to lead and innovate in our field. So the first one is to dream big. In my expeditions, whether it was reaching the poles or climbing the world's highest peaks, dreaming big was the first step. Let's set audacious goals for ourselves, pushing beyond the conventional to truly innovate. So dream big. We human beings are as big as our dreams. The success of any expedition relies on the strength of teamwork. No matter where your dreams take you, remember that you're never alone. When Deeya and I climbed the 7 summits together, our success was built on the foundation of strong teamwork. We were able to come challenges that would have been insurmountable alone. Teamwork makes the impossible possible. A positive outlook is your most valuable asset in life. In the harshest conditions, maintaining a positive outlook can be the difference between success and failure. Embrace challenges as opportunities, and you'll find that setbacks are just stepping stones to greater heights. Every successful expedition requires meticulous planning. Similarly, in life, setting clear goals and mapping out your path is crucial. Plan your journey, but also be adaptable. Throughout my journeys, I've come to appreciate the value of relationships. The bonds we forge with others provide us with support, encouragement, and a sense of belonging. Cultivate and nurture your relationships, for they are the true treasures of life. Your dreams can only be realized if you're in good health. Prioritize your health. It is our biggest wealth. Take care of your body and mind. Prioritize your health, and you'll have the strength to face any challenges and move strongly towards your goals. The colossal scale of nature's challenges teaches humility. I think it's essential in life to remain humble. Nature has a way of reminding us of our insignificance. Humility keeps us grounded and open to continuous learning and growth. Trust is the glue that binds teams together and strengthens relationships. And respect for others is the foundation upon which trust is built. Treat every person you encounter with respect, regardless of their background or role in your life. Respect is the cornerstone of strong, lasting relationships. I think while reaching the summit of a mountain or exploring the polar wilderness is exhilarating, true happiness is found in the journey itself. Find joy in every step, for life's beauty lies in the little moments, not just the grand achievements. And finally, having witnessed the impacts of climate change in the most remote parts of the world, this planet of ours, this blue marble, perhaps the only planet that sustains life, it requires careful nurturing. Do make it an integral part of your ethos. Well, after the freezing temperatures of the 3 poles, I think you're all ready now to brave the plus 45 degrees Celsius outside. With that, I'd like to wish all of you health, happiness, and success higher than the 7 summits. Thank you.